late to work, which, by the way, when you've been there 9 years, you pretty much can get away with stuff like this. So, not really worried about that, but just wanted to talk about the state of boxing. So, there seemed to be some kind of delay going on with Canelo and Charlo being announced because a deal had been set in place to where they had a date. Basically, I heard that they had a location. This fight was going to take place at Cowboy Stadium, but it hasn't been officially announced. I don't know if they're working over some, stipulations with, Canelo possibly being able to control, Charlo's weight. Because, when you fight Canelo, it's stipulation after stipulation. I mean, it is what it is. So I don't know why it's taking so long for this fight to be officially announced, because a deal has been put in place. So I don't know. Maybe they're working out some final details. But this fight was supposed to be. It was actually supposed to be announced like during the weekend. Then it was supposed to have been announced yesterday. So maybe Friday or something, maybe tomorrow, but I don't know. They seem to be some kind of snag going on and why this fight hasn't been officially announced. But Jermall Charlo is supposed to be Canelo's next opponent. Okay. So, just talking boxing, getting to the dynamics of what happened with Gary Russell Jr. He got screwed, man. He got screwed, and that's just the bottom line. And the WBC is wrong for not at least ordering Gary Russell Jr. to be able to get a rematch. Now, I heard people doing a thing, saying, well, it's Gary Russell Jr. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I already know what a lot of these dudes be doing. A lot of these dudes like to cater to a certain audience because they want to build up their channel and stuff. Because like I say, as long as you don't say the truth on your channel, whether it's the truth pertaining to black fighters or whether it's the truth pertaining to non-black fighters, people watch your channel. And I said from the beginning, I'm not going to be a view whore, and I'm gonna continue to have those standards on my channel. Now, if other people choose to do it, that's on them, but I'm not gonna do it. Won't do it, will not do it, and I just can't do it. I'm gonna speak my truth no matter how harsh it is or whether people want to hear it or not. That's just the way it is. But Gary Russell Jr. should be able to have the opportunity to get his belt back. And for them to order Ray Vargas, and I think Leo Santa Cruz in a eliminator bout, that's not cool. Or Leo Santa Cruz to get a title shot. But they're gonna say it's possibly unification. So, the politics in boxing is just horrible. And then you had people saying it was good for boxing that Gary Russell Jr. lost. Well, I already told you what that means. That's a code word. Whenever they say it's good for boxing that somebody lost that looked like Gary Russell Jr., especially who they lost to, basically what it means is it's good for boxing that a black fighter lost to a non-black fighter. Especially if it ends it a Mexican fighter, because at the end of the day, it's not out of the normal for a Mexican fighter to beat a black fighter. But when you lose to a Filipino fighter or something like that, or Asian fighter, then that's why they see it's good for boxing. Because at the end of the day, truth be told, we already know Hispanics, blacks and Mexicans for the most part have dominated boxing. And that's fact. That's what they mean when they say that. When they say it's, good for boxing when somebody like Mark Masseu wins. Because at the end of the day, they looking for the next Manny Pacquiao. And they have some good Filipino fighters out there. Jarvis Akanta, he's pretty good. They got some good fighters out there. They do. He's pretty good. You know, Marcelo Hesser, I was kind of on the fence with him. I mean, of course, they got Nonito Donaire. Nonito Donaire is a Hall of Fame fighter. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. But that's what they mean. But you know, at the end of the day, nobody wants to talk about what God did to Gary Russell Jr. because at the end of the day, okay, instead of possibly questioning what God did with Gary Russell Jr., let's set our sights back on Terrence Crawford. And this is beginning to be, well, it's been predictable for the longest. And I see that now. Terrence Crawford is the only fighter that got to watch what he say about anybody. He the only one that can't say nothing to anybody without somebody coming on here getting extremely emotional. But any and everybody can say something about him. Like I say, the hypocrisy on here is just mind-boggling. But, you know, it is what it is, and I get it. I don't like it, but I get it. When you pushing the agenda and you want to keep a certain audience, you know, watching your channel and you know, doing, you know, making the donations and all that kind of stuff, I mean, I get it. But I'm going to be authentic with mine. That's just the way I roll. Got to, man. Got to do it. So, like I said before, Gary Russell Jr. should get he should be able to get some get back, but that doesn't look like it's going to happen. You know, having a 5-year run and basically he don't get an opportunity to get his belt back, that's just screwed up. So now this talk of Devin Haney, he may move up to 140 and fight Gary Russell Jr.'s brother at 140. That would be a very interesting fight. But I still think Devin Haney should take care of business. He still got some work remaining at 135. Now, George Kambosos Jr., I think now the celebration and the victory lap is over now. I mean, you've had 2 months to enjoy your victory and, you know, just do your thing and build up your status, but now it's time to get to the point where now it's time to make a decision now. Because even if you make a decision, you still gonna have possibly like 3 months anyway before you get back in the ring. So really you're gonna have like a 5-month span. So now it's time for you to get back in the ring now. It's time for you to make a decision. Either it's gonna be Tank, either it's gonna be Lomachenko, or it's gonna be, you know, Devin Haney. People are waiting. But then again, Tank may be preoccupied because the WBA has ordered him to get in the ring with Rolly. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to talk about how Rolly versus Tank now is going to be an even more intriguing fight. Because now it's going to be an even bigger storyline. And you know how Rolly talks. And Rolly has been hinting behind the scenes that it was possibly some foul play leading up to, you know, him having to, you know, pull out of that fight, which, like I said before, Rolly should have been allowed to fight. Because Rolly hadn't been arrested, you know, he hadn't been arrested, he hadn't been charged, nothing. So it was no reason for Rolly to pull out of that fight. So Tank could be preoccupied. Now, is Tank gonna rematch Cruz? Probably not. You have to understand, according to, well, you know, according to the moniker, according to the moniker, the script, Tank doesn't have to necessarily rematch Isaac Cruz because, you know, he's the champ. Now, had he had lost and he wanted a rematch, they would expect Cruz to give him a rematch. Sometimes I think a no rematch clause, it depends on what the situation is. I think sometimes the dude should just honor it, whether it's a written agreement or not, especially under the circumstances. Gary Russell Jr.'s circumstances is unique. I know people trying to downplay what happened, but you see how the narrative switches. Gary Russell Jr. was clearly hurt and fought with one arm, and he gets no credit. Don't get called a warrior. You hear people say he just needs to take his L and move on. But you know, I know in other circumstances when you had people hollering about they was hurt and they underperformed and whatever the case may be and why they lost, people was like, yeah, see, that was the reason. So people always switch up at the drop of a dime. People don't know what direction they going. They're all over the place when it comes to these situations. So, like I said before, I think Gary Russell Jr. should get a rematch. I think the WBC need to do right by him. They want to make franchise championships for people, you know, for a good code of conduct. Well, what did Gary Russell Jr. ever do outside of boxing? So didn't he conduct himself like a professional? Yeah, exactly. See, they changed the narrative when it always comes to fighters that look like Gary Russell Jr. You go into a fight with a handicap, you end up losing, and you say, hey, I want a rematch. They say you crying and all this stuff. But if you don't look like Gary Russell Jr., you say you was hurt, then people feel sorry for you. Like I said before, you seen what happened with Andre Ward and Sergey Kovalev. People demanded, when they thought that Sergey Kovalev won that first fight, and he didn't, people demanded that Sergey Kovalev get a rematch with Andre Ward. If Andre Ward does give Sergey Kovalev a rematch, he's a coward and all this kind of stuff. But Mark Massell says, well, it's up to my team. And then all of a sudden his English gets a little distorted. When they asked him, would you give him a rematch? He said, well, it's up to my team. He should have said, yeah. Even if he was lying, he should have said, yeah, we can run it back. Yeah, we can run it back. I'll give him a rematch. He could have at least lied. I'm the champ now and all this kind. That was weak. That was weak sauce. See, at the end of the day, whenever a brother wins, they raise the bar so high, they want us to fight everybody. We have to accept every fight that the public say we need to accept. But when it comes to people like Canelo, then, well, this fight may not make any money. What has he done? You start hearing those quotes. When it comes to our fighters, they have to fight everybody that the public demands that they fight to prove themselves worthy. But if we say, hey, Canelo need to fight this dude, hey, Canelo need to fight that dude, or Nonito Donaire need to fight this dude. Nonito Donaire ducked Rigondeaux for years. Until he finally, it took $3 million to get Nonito Donaire in the ring with Rigondeaux. It's never no pressure on the fighters that don't have melanin in them to fight any and everybody. But us, we got to fight everybody. If the devil is available, we got to fight him. But that's the standards that a lot of these clowns set, and that's why I don't take a lot of them seriously anyway. Because at the end of the day, they just really trolls. They will switch up at the drop of a dime, but it's always pressure on the fighters that look like me. They have to fight and then when they beat them, they're never satisfied. I promise you. When Shakur Stevenson defeats Valdez, there's going to be some excuse not to give Shakur Stevenson his credit. But then they want all the credit in the world when they fighter wins. I promise you, if Shakur Stevenson beats Valdez, some obstacle is going to get through in the way. I promise you. Some obstacle is going to get through in the way to discredit Shakur Stevenson. But then, if one of they fighters win, oh, you guys are haters. You guys are racist. How come you won't give them their props? Because you don't do it with us. That's why. It ain't no wrong side of the street. It's a two-way street. It's not a one-way street. You give our fighters they just do, we'll give your fighters they just do. And I've been tired of that for a while. Every time I come on here and give a brother credit for winning a tough fight, then like I said, it's always the excuse. It's always the yeah, but it's always, well, it's this, it's always the same BS. And I'm sorry, and I'm not gonna come up with clickbait content neither. It's always the same. It's always the same thing. I promise you, when Shakur Stevenson beats Oscar Valdez, it's gonna be some kind of obstacle. It's gonna be some kind of. What's gonna happen is the Mexican fan base is gonna disappear. They're gonna disappear because they only come around when you give their fighters props. It's some that do it, but then most of them, they're going to disappear. Same thing with the Filipinos. It's only one that come around that mess with me, win, lose, or draw, he'll show up. That's it. He'll show up no matter who wins, but they will disappear. Me, myself, if the fighter that looked like me happened to lose, I give credit to the other dude. What makes me laugh is when people say boxing isn't race-oriented when it is. And I just want people to stop BS. Because it is. Always has been, always will be. Alright, so let's talk about something. Let me talk about a subject Blue Blood talked about, which I hope this, I know people gonna get mad at me, but I have to say this, and this is just the honest to God truth. Now, I know Blue Blood put up a video and he was talking about Floyd's new trainer. And I know Floyd is working with Carissa Shields, and I think that's a good look for Carissa Shields, working alongside Floyd Mayweather. I mean, they both from Michigan. Carissa Shields is from Flint, Michigan. Floyd coming out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. So I think that's cool, and I think Floyd can turn Carissa Shields to a superstar. I see it in Carissa Shields. Carissa Shields is a really good fighter. Now, like I said, I'll criticize Carissa Shields on some stuff that she said that I wasn't feeling, and that's my right. And she got an issue with that because I voiced my opinion. Then I don't know what to say, but I support Carissa Shields wholeheartedly. Been ride with her since she came out the Olympics. But when she say something that I think is some BS, I'm just gonna take her to task on it. And that's it, that's all. It ain't nothing personal. I'm not on that Tasha K shit. Like what Tasha K did to Cardi B. And I'm not the biggest Cardi B fan. I'm not a Cardi B fan at all. Because I still haven't forgot what Cardi B said and what Cardi B did. But at the end of the day, Tasha K brought that on herself because she flat out lied on Cardi B and she was clickbaiting. And then had to admit in court that she was lying. So now Tasha K got to pay Cardi B somewhere between $1 million and $1.5 million. But I just wanted to put that in. I don't do clickbait. But I know Blue was talking about a Floyd Mayweather Canelo rematch. I'm just going to give you guys a serious reality check. I'm going to say what it would mean to Floyd if he was to even consider fighting Canelo at age. Floyd is going to be 40? Floyd is going to be 45 on February the 24th? And Floyd haven't had an actual fight. I mean, if you want to count that Conor McGregor fight that happened like 5 years ago, but Floyd hasn't had a fight in 7 years, and that was Andre Berto. If Canelo would even remotely consider fighting Floyd at age 45, that would say a lot about Canelo's character. I mean, if Canelo couldn't beat Floyd at 46 and he waited almost 10 years to fight him again, because he felt confident enough to beat him. That says a lot about Canelo, and that would show that Canelo ain't been trying to fight the best guys out there. It's always circumstances surrounding Canelo. And Floyd at this stage, if Floyd would consider even remotely getting back in the ring with Canelo, I would really have to question possibly, and I'm not pocket watching, I would really have to question Floyd's financial circumstances, because that would, yeah, a Floyd Canelo fight would probably generate a couple of $100 million. But at this stage, could Floyd get back in there and beat Canelo at this stage? Because Canelo and them PEDs, that mystery meat, it's like Venom. They're one now. You know, like Eddie Brock and Venom, they're one now. And that's fact. Those PEDs that Canelo been using are synonymous with him. They're attached to him now. You know what I'm saying? That's his spinach. And let's not try to make it look like I'm just singling out Canelo, because I've talked about fighters of every race that have been popped for PEDs. And we can speculate what we think Floyd and Manny Pacquiao did, but unfortunately, I haven't seen it, and it's not on file. It's just alleged. There's supposed to be an alleged failed drug test with Manny Pacquiao. Well, I haven't seen it. They can't find it. There's supposed to be an alleged failed drug test with Floyd Mayweather. Can't find it. Haven't seen it. We can speculate all we want. But we know for a fact that Canelo has been popped for using PEDs, and he can holler. It was in the steak burritos that he ate all he wants. He can holler about it was in the steak, the meat he ate all, but nobody is buying that. That's fact. I'm not buying that. Because if that's the case, keep happening with everybody, and I gotta say this. I know Eddie Reynoso, they made his fighter sign disclaimers saying that he's just the trainer. Well, how come every fighter that Reynoso has trained that's attached to, he got at least 3 to 4 fighters that he's worked with that has ties to some kind of PED use? I get it. We're picking on him. I know we're picking on him. We're picking on Canelo. I know it's because he's Mexican. I know we're hating on him. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. I've heard this before, and let me speak on this whole, well, Floyd didn't give Manny Pacquiao a rematch. Manny Pacquiao, like I said, Manny Pacquiao should have put in the contract. He should have put a rematch clause in the contract. And at this point, let's just face the fact, Floyd Mayweather versus Manny Pacquiao, it was just a spectacle. It was never meant to be a trilogy. If people can talk about Ali fighting Frazier like 3 times, that was different. Way different back then. You got to understand, back in the 70s, they didn't have all these different forms of entertainment. They didn't have no internet back then. They didn't have TV, wasn't what it was back then. So that was an event. That was a spectacle back then. That was a big event. And people would set their sights on something like that back then. But now they got too many ways for people to entertain themselves. Or to be entertained. So that's different. Sometimes you can't compare every circumstances together. You can't combine them all together. Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao was what it was. It was just supposed to be a one-time thing to see who would win. It was never set out to be a trilogy. It was never set out. Because if that's the case, If Manny Pacquiao really wanted, and I'm sure Floyd would have gave him a rematch. But if Manny Pacquiao wanted to fight Floyd Mayweather multiple times, he would have asked for a rematch clause. And keep in mind, Manny Pacquiao said, see, and this is where Manny Pacquiao get himself in trouble, because he keep changing his story about what happened with his shoulder. First, he said he had a dream he was going to stop Floyd. Then he said he had a dream that God told him that he was going to lose to Floyd Mayweather. Well, if God told you was going to lose to Floyd Mayweather in the first fight, shouldn't that really have made you want to ask for a rematch? So, I mean, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Manny the one that said he dreamed that God told him he was going to lose to Floyd Mayweather. So obviously he wasn't too keen on a rematch. Manny Pacquiao was throwing punches throughout the fight with both his hands. That is a fact. And then after the fight, he said he thought he won. Then he comes back an hour later talking about his shoulder was messed up. Then you started hearing this stuff about, well, I had surgery. I didn't have surgery. I purified myself in Lake Minnetonka. He supposedly had surgery, but then pictures show up of Manny Pacquiao playing basketball, deep sea diving. I mean, everything. At a shooting range and stuff. I mean, running, shooting guns. So, I mean, like, which one is it? See, people don't talk about that, though. And I seen that coke sniffing dude. I seen that coke sniffing dude trying to make his little videos, like trying to take shots at black media and all. You know, dude is the ultimate view whore. See, people forget about that. When people say, well, Manny had an injury, Manny had all kind of videos. I can say whatever I want to say, dude. Okay? I ain't disrespecting Manny Pacquiao, but don't come on here trying to police my channel. You don't like what I have to say, get the fuck off my channel. How's that? Don't come on here barking no orders. This channel only got one host, and that's me. You don't like what I have to say, get your ass off my channel. And I'm only gonna tell you once. Or should I have somebody block you? Watch your fucking mouth. You don't like what I have to say, get the fuck off. Bitch. Now what? I said it, and there ain't nothing you gonna do about it. Now, I said what I had to say. I meant it. I don't take it back. There ain't a damn thing you can do about it. Now what? So like I said before, Manny Pacquiao changed his story so many times about what happened with his shoulder. Like I said, he the one that was playing basketball, deep sea diving, you know. You know? So that's all I'm saying. Real talk. So that's different. Now, if a video surface of Gary Russell Jr. like playing basketball a week later and doing the crossover dribble, then hey, it is what it is. We got to take Gary Russell Jr. to task. I'm fair. So that's all I'm saying. But anyway, let me get back to this Canelo Floyd thing, because I know Blue was talking about that. That would be absurd for Floyd to get, even though Floyd is Floyd. Come on, man. At this stage, you really think that Floyd could just get back in the ring and go in there up against Canelo? At this stage, a Canelo who done moved up since fighting Floyd, he done moved up like 4 weight classes. Even though along the way he made up his weight classes and got away with that. That's all I'm saying. I don't care if you unsubscribe. When I lose one subscriber, I'll gain 5 more by the end of the week. I'll be fine, dude. Trust me. I'll be fine. But you ain't gonna tell me what to say on my channel. You better go take your ass to them other channels. Like I said, Floyd ain't about to jump in the ring with Canelo at this point. Floyd haven't had an actual fight in almost in 7 years. And he will be 45 on February the 24th. This is just I'm gonna tell you something. This is just another thing to keep Floyd's name in the you know, keep people talking. Floyd ain't go jump in the ring with Canelo like 9 years later. Floyd fought Canelo in like 2013. And if anybody think that Floyd would just be able to immediately just train and get back in the ring with Canelo, who didn't have what? How many fights since Floyd Mayweather? Canelo didn't have what? I can't even think. Canelo didn't have what? What? 12 fights since Floyd Mayweather? Something like that. At least 10 since Floyd Mayweather. And you think? I mean, come on. We can't be naive. Floyd is an exceptional boxer, but Floyd wouldn't be able to get back in the ring at this point and be able to beat Canelo. This is just the truth. Let's not be naive. And no, I'm not dissing Blue Blood. So don't try to make it look like I'm dissing Blue Blood. This is my own personal opinion. Floyd ain't get back in the ring with Canelo after no 9 years. And like I say, this would say a lot about Canelo. Canelo would show that he really don't have no confidence. And for Canelo to be sitting up there, even entertaining the thought of fighting Floyd Mayweather in a rematch just for money, that would just show Canelo ain't who we made him out to be, or who some people have made Canelo out to be. Go after the best guys in every division. It's long been stated. It's long been stated. Oh, I ain't worried about these Canelo groupies. Get their ass out of here. It's long been a fact. This is just real talk. Canelo, every fight Canelo goes into, he looks for a real disadvantage. If he can't do it based off the fighter's skills, he'll do it with the weight. He'll do it with some other things. Canelo doesn't go after the best guys. When he went up to light heavyweight, you see he didn't want none of Artur Beterbiev. He fought Sergey Kovalev, a guy who was having desperate money problems. And by the way, Sergey Kovalev, from what I heard, ain't been making payments to that lady that he was ordered to pay all that money to. He fought Sergey Kovalev, who had been recently knocked out by Andre Ward and the other Alvarez. And by the way, that Sergey Kovalev looked so scripted. This is why a lot of people don't like to talk. That fight wasn't on the up and up. But Canelo never goes after the best guys. I told y'all he wasn't going to fight Artur Beterbiev. I told y'all that. I said that he didn't want to fight Artur Beterbiev. Artur Beterbiev at 37 is still too dangerous for Canelo. He just too dangerous. He just too dangerous. Because all it takes for Artur Beterbiev is to start landing a couple of punches. And he could just... Artur Beterbiev can alter your game plan immediately. Marcus Brown looked pretty good the first couple of rounds. But you already knew it was going to happen. He looked good the first couple of rounds. Then all of a sudden... No, I'll find out about it later on. Look, I'm gonna just say this, and this is real talk, and I'm not trying to cause no Mexican division. A lot of Mexicans don't respect Canelo. I don't think Marquez respects Canelo. I don't think Nacho been taking shots at Canelo. And Oscar, for what it's worth, Oscar been kind of hitting that Canelo ain't who they make him out to be. Because Canelo doesn't go after the best guys. Yeah, Canelo can fight. And like I said before, David Benavidez' style is a nightmare for Canelo. And Caleb Plant was winning that fight until the stoppage. And for people that saying I'm hating on Canelo, how am I hating on Canelo and bigging up Caleb Plant? Somebody told me I was racist for saying that that Caleb Plant was winning against Canelo until the stoppage. I'm not white. Both of my parents are black. So I'm just like, so how am I being racist towards Canelo when I said Caleb Plant was winning that fight? He was outboxing Canelo. And had he had more experience, he would have beat Canelo. I'm just telling the truth. That don't make no kind of sense. You said a black man is racist towards Canelo because he was getting outboxed by a white fighter? Man, that was the funniest thing I ever seen in my life when I heard that. But this is some of the stuff that these guys pull. But like I said, at this point, I don't think Floyd Mayweather would get in the ring with Canelo at this stage because, like, that would just be ridiculous. What would that prove? And the funny thing is, even at this stage, Floyd still would be the A side if he took Canelo on in a rematch. So, but anyway, appreciate it.